Okay, so we have been talking about Puritans and Bradstreet, and you guys remember what her basic philosophy, where it came from? It was a minister that kind of started this thing. Puritans had this philosophy. Puritans had the philosophy. Even segregationalists or separatist segregationists. I'm stuck in Black History Month. Here we go. The separatists even had this philosophy. It was after a minister that kind of did some things. It was Calvinist beliefs, Calvinistic type beliefs, and so they're pretty strict, all of them on what their beliefs are. But what I want to look at is a text called "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God." And the reason I'm looking at it is not because I don't want you just to hear a sermon, because this is what really we're going to look at is a sermon. But I want us to notice the figures of speech. And in the my essential question for us is, how can we use figurative language to promote understanding? And what does figurative language do? And how important does figurative language become in helping us understand the message, or the message on what we're trying to deliver? Okay, so I am going to give you a little bit of history of Jonathan Edwards. I know that's boring, another boring part of the English class, and it comes really straight from the book. But I've highlighted in my book about his intellectual status. A lot of people do see ministers as not being well educated, that they are being called. And of course now we have them as they go and earn doctorates and things like that in theology and other things. That's no different than what they did even back in the 1700s. So Jonathan Edwards lived from 1703 until 1758. Intellectually, Edwards straddled two ages: the modern secular world, exemplified by such men as Ben Franklin, and the religious world of his zealous Puritan ancestors. So he's dealing with that at the same time. So he's starting to see a little bit more of a modern take on things. Of course, with Ben Franklin and scientific aspects. So at this point, the church is, I wouldn't say changing, but they are realizing that people are becoming more worldly. So I just thought that was interesting. He is known as the last Puritan, as far as standing. Let's see, I wrote it down here. That stood between Puritan America and modern America. Tragically, he fit into neither one of those. So, but he's a famous minister at the time, and people did react to his sermons. But again, we're not trying to react to his sermons. We're trying to react to his figures of speech, words or phrases that compare one thing to another. And you're going to see some pretty famous figures of speech, metaphors in this. And we're going to work with the figures of speech as we do this. So our assignment today is really to read "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God." And I'm putting the assignment up on the screen real quick. You're going to copy the vocabulary development into a Google Doc. So everything's going to be on a Google Doc entitled with your last name, "Sinners in the Hands of an Angry God." Vocabulary development, there's about 8 words, maybe 10. Appease, constitution, contrivance, things that we don't necessarily hear every day. Inconceivable, omnipotent, abhors, abominable, ascribe, and induce are the words there. So I do want you to copy them down and write the definition, so that even before you read. And so as you read, you're looking for evidences of figures of speech. All right. And in part 2, same document, there are yellow questions within the text. I'm pulling the text up now, hopefully. And you just click on it. You don't have to download it if you don't want to, which probably makes it easier. But there are yellow boxes with numbers on them. And so those are the first ones that you're going to do as far as part 2. So I'm going back to, well, I thought I was going back. Why is it not going back? I'm sorry, I was trying to go back to the assignment. I had this all planned out. There it goes. All right, so just wrong one. All right, so there are there are 8 of them, I believe, and for questions 3 and 7 in the yellow thing, they're not really questions. So they're just going to ask you something. So I put that in there. For number 3, write the metaphor. So write out the metaphor. And for number 7, you're just going to identify and explain in your own words what the main idea is. What do you think the main idea of that is? And then there's a part 3. What is the direct statement in which Edward sets forth the purpose of his sermon? You can copy these questions. There's 4 questions. And paste them also into the document and do that. I don't want to read to you guys because I'm trusting that you are able to read this. And I don't have a fiery preacher sermon thing that would associate with this. But I will tell you that he has Puritan roots, so keep that in mind as you read. But again, we're looking for the figures of speech. And that's pretty much it for the assignment today. And so make sure that you're working on that. We'll talk about sinners in the hands of an angry God. We'll talk about the figures of speech tomorrow when you come back to class. But please make sure that you are working on that. Now, there are 3, there's at least 3 figures of speech that are very famous. And they try to point those out to you on some of the questions, at least not these questions. But you'll be able to identify them. And you'll see what I'm talking about. So if you have any questions, just ask.